is NBC Palm Springs.
Good morning, Coachella Valley, and thank you for joining us for NBC Palm Springs Midday. I'm Joe Smith. I'm glad you're here. Mike Everett has your beautiful weekend forecast coming up. He's in for Jerry. That in a bit, but let's get to our top stories first.
Coronavirus coverage brought to you by East Valley COVID-19 testing site, serving residents of eastern Coachella Valley.
Coronavirus cases in the U.S. surpassed 4 million since the start of the pandemic. The U.S. added 1 million cases in just 15 days. In the beginning, it took 99 days for the U.S. to hit 1 million cases. Yesterday, California reported its highest single-day death toll since the pandemic began. The positivity rate in the state is nearing 8%. Now a look at the latest COVID-19 numbers from Riverside County and the entire Coachella Valley. Over 800 new cases in Riverside County, more than 200 of those in the Coachella Valley, 20 new deaths in the county, 12 of those in the valley. Palm Springs City Council holds a meeting into the late night to discuss the city's coronavirus response. The city invited Riverside County Health Officer Dr. Cameron Kaiser to join. He said overall the city is doing well in response to the numbers and they reflect it. The city hasn't made any new decisions but says they will discuss details further at another meeting. Cathedral City leaders vote to declare a fiscal emergency amid the pandemic. The council agrees to draw down almost $6 million in reserves to balance the budget. The council had already approved budget reductions of about $8.3 million for the next fiscal year. City Manager Charlie McClendon says a formal declaration emphasizes to the community the city is making significant changes to the budget. Unemployment numbers are unexpectedly high this week, with 1.4 million new claims filed, and the CARES Act is set to run out next week. It gave Americans an extra $600 on top of state unemployment benefits, but now the White House and congressional Republicans agree on a new coronavirus package. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin gives a preview of what's included in the package.
What's in the proposal right now is more money for schools. Again, this is about kids and jobs, and some of the money is based upon, half of the money is based upon additional expenses for reopening.
House Democrats passed their own $3 trillion proposal in May and have been waiting on a response from the Senate. Nearly half of Americans affected by a layoff during the coronavirus pandemic now believe those jobs are never coming back. 47% of Americans polled think jobs lost are most likely gone forever. A sharp change from April, when 78% of people in households with a pandemic job loss thought the setback was temporary. This would mean roughly 10 million would need new employers. With the U.S. making bold moves and investments in the speed of developing a coronavirus vaccine, who will be the first to get it when it hits the market? Congressman Dr. Raul Ruiz says he's having that conversation now to make sure the most vulnerable get it first. Our Kitty Alvarado has the story.
I am going to raise hell if that's the scenario.
Congressman Raul Ruiz is not mincing words when it comes to equity in the future of the coronavirus vaccine distribution. He says he will not accept the vaccine going to the highest bidder. To make this clear, he met with pharmaceutical companies.
I told them that we need a public health approach to the distribution of vaccine that's fair, that's effective, and that prioritizes the people that need them the most.
Under Operation Warp Speed, the government program that's investing $10 billion in the development and production of a COVID vaccine to deliver millions of doses to the American people by January, the companies will give the shipments to the government for distribution. The NIH director is already foreseeing skepticism in equity.
I think that people are a little uneasy about the government calling the shots here.
Advisory groups have been set up to help with a decision of who goes first and what factors should be considered.
Clearly, the vulnerable are going to be, if not the top priority, one of the top priorities.
Ruiz says frontline workers, the elderly, and the most vulnerable should be the priority.
Regardless of their economic status or title or status in society, because what matters here is that we save lives and we beat this virus.
Kitty Alvarado, NBC Palm Springs.
The CDC now says COVID patients with mild to moderate symptoms can come out of isolation after 10 days instead of 14. Patients also no longer need a negative test in order to return to work or activities. The guideline changes come after studies showed the large majority of COVID patients were no longer infectious after 10 days. The CDC says those with more severe illnesses may need to quarantine for 20 days. A judge rules the man who allegedly attacked a 7-year-old boy in Desert Hot Springs must undergo a psychological evaluation to determine if he's mentally competent to stand trial. Since 2007, Daniel Polson has been charged on 15 separate occasions. Court records show he was found mentally incompetent to stand trial at least 11 times. The young boy, Gavin Ludwig, was airlifted to Loma Linda. According to a GoFundMe set up for Gavin, he appears to be sitting up by himself and opening one of his eyes. An 18-year-old accused of being involved in a fatal Desert Hot Springs shooting is set to be arraigned today on murder and other charges. Angel Arangure was arrested Tuesday and charged with 2 counts of attempted murder and 3 counts of robbery. He was the second suspect to be arrested. The investigation is ongoing and further leads on others who may be involved are still being investigated. No word on a possible motive. Eastern Coachella Valley has had a string of suspicious deaths over the last 2 weeks. Local police departments say an increase during the summertime is normal, but is the pandemic to blame for the recent uptick? Our Olivia Sandusky has the details.
Several death investigations have taken place in the Coachella Valley over the last few weeks, including homicides, suspicious deaths, and a drowning. And the Indio Police Department says their current homicide numbers are already above 2019's total.
Things have changed. It's not our normal summer. You know, there's a pandemic going on. There's a lot of concern. The quality of life has changed, and it's been more of be careful.
Many of the investigations are ongoing, but the activity isn't unique to the Coachella Valley. A study by the New York Times found that while overall crime is down in 25 of America's largest cities, murder rates are up 16% compared to last year.
Sometimes it could be related to, gang activity or other kinds of things or drug markets as they shift and change, as well as cultural and social events related to the protest and racial injustice and things like that. So there's various explanations, and the context does matter.
Local departments also say domestic violence is on the rise as families deal with the hardships of the pandemic.
People are enclosed inside and have fewer opportunities to leave the house. And it might be harder to access support services as well, that this could be playing some factor in explaining the uptick in homicide.
Despite the recent string of Eastern Coachella Valley deaths, areas like Desert Hot Springs and Indio have seen a decrease in several types of crimes. But police say residents shouldn't let their guard down.
People be more at home, should be more vigilant in general. Their surroundings. If they see something that's not right, they should report it to the authorities.
Olivia Sandusky, NBC Palm Springs.
The lawsuit against the former Cathedral City Police Chief Travis Walker has been dismissed. A judge dismissed the sexual harassment lawsuit after the two parties reached a resolution outside court. The Riverside County District Attorney investigated and did not file criminal charges. Let's take a live look outside right now at our Agua Caliente Casino Cam in Palm Springs. Blue skies and hot temperatures. Chief Meteorologist Mike Everett is in for Jerry Steffen.
Onshore flow continues to be our big story in weather, doing a couple things, helping to keep our temperatures regulated and below average once again today, and that monsoonal moisture stays well off towards the east. Here's what we're looking at off towards the east. Actually, it's going to be a fairly active day. There are some watches and warnings in place down towards Tucson and into parts of New Mexico as well, and the tropics are really lighting up. I'll tell you about that in the full forecast. In the meantime, after starting once again in the mid-70s today, seeing those temperatures warming into that 105 range by the time we get to 4 p.m. today, looks like we'll top out at 106, which once again is below the average of 108. We'll achieve that on Saturday and track some slow warming as we go through the rest of the weekend. We're going to be seeing some more warmer weather and possibly some monsoonal flow next week. Details in your full forecast minutes away.
All right, Mike, thank you. Well, dust off that resume. A new casino that's being built in Cathedral City will be filling some 500 plus positions. There's a big job fair Monday. We've got the details next. The Agua Caliente Casino in Cathedral City will open this year, and it will need to fill hundreds of jobs even before the doors open. Here this morning to tell us about an upcoming job fair is the general manager and the senior vice president of the new casino, Michael Facenda. Welcome, Michael. It's good to have you with us.
Good morning, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Well, 500 jobs, that's a lot, actually more than 500. What in particular are you looking for?
Well, we're thrilled to be bringing this many jobs and economic boost to the Coachella Valley, not to mention Cathedral City. But we will be looking for 500 great team members to join our already great Agua Caliente team. There's a wide range of opportunities available, anything from valet to a slot technician to wait staff to managerial positions. So we're really looking forward to Monday being a great day for us and a lot of applicants.
People need to really come prepared in order to do this at the Mary Pickford Theater. What do they need to make it easy for you to pick them for a job?
Well, we are looking for great personalities first and foremost. Bright smiles, great eye contact, an energy and a passion that meets our standards. And beyond that, any past history, any resumes you might be able to bring, referrals can't hurt at all. But we're looking for applicants really that can deliver a service that Agua Caliente casinos have become known for.
And so I know that the jobs vary, and so it will take different skill sets for a lot of these jobs. Are you willing to do a little OJT?
Yes, we are more than willing to do training for any and all folks that are interested. As a matter of fact, we will be starting a dealer school here sometime in August, and we're going to teach dealers how to deal the games at no cost to them. And it's sort of an education that you can have going into a great career if that's what you're interested in.
I know that when you go for a job interview, the person who is seeking the job really needs to do some prep.
we have 2 operating casinos. Anybody who is considering a career or anything that might show up on Monday can clearly come and visit our properties and see what those jobs are doing, at least the ones that are available out in the front of our house, and get a good idea.
When they get there at the Mary Pickford, they'll be actually talking to somebody who actually is able to hire them?
Yes, that's correct. We have a fleet of hiring managers that are going to be available on Monday. Once an applicant has a decent idea of what position they're interested in, we will take them right to that hiring manager and have that conversation right on the spot.
So they've got to dress for success. What about having an elevator speech prepared?
Clearly, the better prepared the applicant can be, that's great. But what it really comes down to for us is we want personalities, we want passion, and we want smiles and eye contact. And we want people that are going to want to be at Agua Caliente Cathedral City.
I've driven by the construction site several times, and I look at it and I go, my gosh, how did this happen so fast? Are you on target to open in the fall, in winter, when?
We will be opening sometime in the latter part of this year. We're excited about that. We're excited to be bringing yet another entertainment option to the Coachella Valley and Cathedral City. And yes, later this year, we invite everybody to come out and join us in the opening festivities and to take part in what we're all about at Cathedral City.
Well, this job fair comes at an important time when there are so many people now out of work. Again, Mary Pickford Theater, and it's going to be Monday, July 27th, 8 a.m. until 1 p.m. I should mention that they should wear a face mask and also dress for success.
That's correct. We are going to encourage social distancing. We're prepared to be sure all our team members currently and all our new potential team members and all the applicants are in a very healthy situation there.
We hope that a lot of people come out, and I'm sure you're going to have some wonderful applicants from the Valley. Thank you, Michael, so much.
We're sure of it. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Our pleasure. And keep it right here. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Let's take a live look outside right now. This is our Agua Caliente Casino camera in Rancho Mirage. A beautiful day out there and hot. Chief Meteorologist Mike Everett is in for Jerry.
Here in the Coachella Valley, we continue to see some very nice, benign weather for this time of year. That is not the case across the rest of the country, and especially the tropics. Tracking Douglas, now a powerful Category 4 hurricane. Remember, there's only 5 categories. Looks like sustained winds sitting in the low 130s with gusts up to about 160 miles an hour. Headed straight towards the Hawaiian Islands. If there is one silver lining to this cloud, it's that it is expected to weaken as it makes its way closer to the islands there. Could be making impact as a tropical storm on Sunday, bringing heavy rain and gusty winds in excess of 60 miles an hour. We'll give you some updates as we go through the weekend. In the meantime, in the Atlantic, Gonzalo, a tropical storm expected to strengthen to Category 1 strength, will thankfully stay away from any land in the short term. But once it makes its way past Puerto Rico, it's going to hit some open water, which is much warmer as it moves towards Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. And we're tracking Hannah now, a tropical storm that won't get the opportunity to strengthen to hurricane status, but will bring some gusty wind and some rain, possibly between about 4 and 8 inches into areas close to Brownsville and Corpus Christi as we go through the weekend. Temperatures across North America looking for some low 80s towards Boston, mid 80s in Philadelphia, 88 muggy in Miami, 102 in Phoenix, 79 in LA, and 68 today in Seattle. Here's what we're going to do locally: 107 in Havasu, 102 in Phoenix, 105 in Yuma, and along the coast again, the marine layer is fairly thick, so we'll see temperatures that stay in the mid 70s, upper 70s towards LA. They will see some afternoon sunshine, but it's going to take a while for that to burn off. Putting future winds into motion today, I am expecting them to get a little gusty tonight. It's that time of year. We'll see that easterly flow during the day, and then we'll see that switch around to the north and northwest around 6 or 7 o'clock tonight. We'll see some gusts that'll get up to about 25 and even 30 miles an hour in some spots. But obviously, the later it gets, the calmer it will become. We'll get ourselves back into single digits again after midnight. After starting gloriously in the mid 70s today, we warm up to that 105 range by about 4 p.m. Look for 106 in Palm Springs, 107 in India. Once again, this is slightly below average for this time of year. Upper 90s in Joshua Tree, 97 in Cabazon, a warm 88 in Idlewild, and mid-70s in Big Bear. Your Comfort Air 7-day forecast shows us staying in this temperate range through the weekend, but then as we go towards next week, high pressure builds in that's going to warm us up starting on Monday, and we could be looking at some monsoonal moisture across the region as early as Wednesday.
And welcome back as we take a look at our Walter Clark Highway 111 cam. Beautiful day out there, not even a breeze. A bit of traffic, though, on this hot Friday as we take a look now at the Showbiz Report. He's being called the cult cinema hero, Udo Kier. He's a longtime Palm Springs resident, and as Manny the Movie Guy shows us, his career has gravitated between B-movies and art house cinema.
Congrats on The Painted Bird. It's a searing but impactful look at the horrors of humanity. It's raw and intense. I love it. Take me from the very beginning. What got you interested to join Vaclav Marhul's The Painted Bird?
Well, hello, Manny. I got the offer, I got the script, and immediately I bought the book and I compared the book with the script. And the script was really very strong. I have seen, of course, being German, I have seen a lot of Holocaust movies. But what I like about this movie is it's not the Holocaust gate, open up, the boy runs away, the parents stand behind the window shaking, and hopefully the boy makes it. It's not like that. So it's about the boy to survive. It's amazing that it is in black and white, because film is shadow and light. So I like it because you don't see any color. You see the reality of trees, the shadow, the young boy. I don't say that very often, but the film is a masterpiece.
Now, let's talk about Udo Kier for a second. I've loved you since the Andy Warhol movies, by the way. And I loved you even more when I saw you in Madonna's video, Deeper and Deeper, and The Sex Book. And you've worked with great directors. Now, looking back at your fantastic career, did you ever think that this German boy would one day conquer Hollywood?
No, of course not. I was born at the end of the war. There was nothing to eat. And then with 19, I left Germany. So I left to England to learn English. And then I was discovered for movies. And I was very, very, very lucky man that over the years I worked with Fassbinder, Wim Wenders, Herzog, Gus von Sant, with everybody. I never programmed anything as an actor what I want to do next.
How was it working with the Queen of Pop?
Madonna had seen me in my own private Idaho, and then Steve Marcel said, may I introduce, this is Madonna here. And she said to me, would you like to do a book with me? And I said, yes. And then I heard the book was called Sex. So now I'm enjoying my time, and it's wonderful because I have a lot of time to sing about my past life.
Congrats again. It was nice to talk to you as always. And maybe someday I can interview you in your humble abode in Palm Springs, Mr. Udo.
Yes, and with more time.
And up next, the U.S. faces a coin shortage during the pandemic, and some businesses are making a request to shoppers. We'll have the details after this break.
iPhone fans may have to wait at least another month before they get to see the new version of the smartphone. A tech blog is reporting Apple is delaying its annual fall event until the second half of October instead of early September. The company is being forced to push back the event for the 5G wireless-capable iPhone 12 because of production delays caused by the virus pandemic. Apple is expected to announce 4 new iPhones with the 5G models available in November. And can you spare a dime? How about a nickel or a quarter? The U.S. Mint is asking Americans to please use more change. Businesses nationwide have posted signs asking for exact change because of a coin shortage caused by the virus pandemic. The Mint says it's working to replenish the nation's coin supply, but it needs the public's help as well. Social distancing measures have put a damper on consumer spending and led people to pay with plastic or their smartphones more than with physical money. The Mint says the pace of circulation is so slow right now that sufficient quantities of coins aren't readily available where they're needed. With your CNBC Morning Business Report, I'm Dominic Chu.
Now let's head to Washington, D.C., where the clock is ticking on the enhanced employment benefits. Time that's running out, actually. Also, the eviction protection is also running out. But as Tracy Potts reports now, Republicans say they will have a new coronavirus relief package by next week.
Over 4 million coronavirus cases, 1,000 deaths a day, and unemployment running out.
It means I'm homeless. There's no answer. I don't have an option.
As lines grow at test sites and unemployment centers, Republicans say their $1 trillion fix rolls out next week.
Our proposal will focus on 3 things: kids, jobs, and health care.
It's going to put the people of America and those that are suffering the most as our number one priority.
The plan will include direct payments to Americans, a second round of business loans, help for hospitals and healthcare workers, a limit on Medicare premiums, liability protection, and temporary unemployment.
If you were making $300, you're not going to get $600 this time.
We want to shore up middle class, those aspire to it, and Main Street.
We want to deal with evictions right now. I mean, the eviction moratorium is expiring in a few days.
Today, the CDC holds a briefing on reopening schools.
All families should be empowered to make the decision that is right for their own circumstance.
New guidance provides checklists and questions to figure that out. Tracy Potts, NBC News.
Now to some headlines from across the country. Workers living in a compound near the Chinese consulate in Houston, Texas, will be evicted today. U.S. officials say the consulate is closing in an effort to protect American intellectual property, but did not give any specifics about a threat. A foreign ministry spokesperson condemned the action. We're still seeing protests against racial inequality across the country. In Chicago, protesters are calling on the mayor to cut police funding. The demonstration came after Mayor Lori Lightfoot did an about-face on resisting President Trump's plan to send 200 federal agents into the city and agreed to his plan.
We're just confronting her on the fact that, like, the police are basically running the streets, and she, as a former cop, is still supporting them. And, like, we as people are still getting brutalized and are not getting our chance to, like, stand up for ourselves because we want to do this peacefully. But if we can't, this is why we're here.
Protesters also say they want justice for an 18-year-old activist named Miracle Boyd, who was seen on cell phone video being punched by an officer during a demonstration last week. Federal law enforcement agents and protesters square off for another night of violence in Portland, Oregon. Federal officers used tear gas and other crowd-control munitions after protesters launched fireworks at the federal courthouse yesterday. A federal judge blocked U.S. agents from arresting or using physical force against journalists and legal observers. Around the region now, police arrested about a dozen protesters in Beverly Hills. They were with a group called Black Future Project and were arrested for not dispersing after blocking traffic. One was arrested for assaulting an officer. The group wants to defund police and use that money to pay for mental health and community resources in schools. They're also demanding for changes to school curriculum to better reflect the histories of minorities in America. A bit of help this morning for an essential worker who has helped so many others during the pandemic. Thalia Hayden shows us who Honda of the Desert and Toyota of the Desert are saluting.
We are here at Find Food Bank and we are about to surprise Mina Kano. Mina Kano. Hello, I'm Thalia Hayden and we are here to surprise you as the Essential Employee of the Week, Toyota and Honda of the Desert. Giving you $1,000 and you're going to be featured on television tomorrow because they think that you are such a fabulous employee. Your boss nominated you for this and you are this week's winner.
Oh, thank you so much. This is surprise. I didn't expect all this.
Oh, I see you have some tears in your eyes.
It's very emotional. I didn't expect all this. Well, I love to work at Find Food Bank. I have a great team.
Mina has an incredible heart for the community and a passion for helping those in need, and I just see her go above and beyond in her job roles just to help clients, so I think she was perfect for this essential worker.
I actually came and volunteered here one day. It's a tough job. It's not an easy job, and let me tell you, doing this day in and day out, it's work.
You deserve that recognition.
Yeah, so I'm glad that this kind of spot where I've been to and before, so I'm glad to be back in here.
You're looking at their team that they're with, and it's, you want to reward all of them, but unfortunately, it's one person a week.
Well, you also generously usually provide lunch too, which is so nice.
We've been doing that because of that reason. It's like they're all working so hard, so we just do a little extra and cater in a lunch for them the following week or whatnot, but this has been amazing.
And another beautiful shot from our Walter Clark Highway 111 camera. Mike's got your forecast after the break.
Valley Pet Finder, brought to you by Torrey Nissan. We say yes.
Hi everybody, I'm Patrice Mock. I'm with Animal Samaritans and I'm surrounded by puppies today. Who doesn't love puppies? And we've got 2 litters right now for you to come down and visit. These guys are Shepherd Terrier mixes, so they won't be quite as big as a German Shepherd, but they've got all the life of a puppy, so you want to have, that extra time to spend and make sure everybody in the family is on board with helping raise a new puppy when you bring one into your home. They have been fixed and microchipped and had all their shots, so they're ready to go. So we welcome you to come down to our shelter on Ramon Road in Thousand Palms and meet these guys or any of the other dogs and cats that we have at the shelter. So we are looking for donations for our animal care fund. That is a fund we have specifically set up to help people in need who can't otherwise make ends meet to take care of their pets on their own. And during COVID-19, there's certainly a lot of need for that right now. And so we welcome donations. We welcome you to go to our website at animalsamaritans.org/donate, and that'll take you right to our donation page, and you can select our animal care fund to help those in need and to help these little guys with all of their care that they need going into a new home. Our shelter is open Monday through Saturday from 10 to 12, and again from 1 to 4:30. And if you come on down and make an appointment to set up a meet and greet to meet your next forever friend.
Here in the Coachella Valley, we continue to see some very nice, benign weather for this time of year. That is not the case across the rest of the country, and especially the tropics. Tracking Douglas, now a powerful Category 4 hurricane. Remember, there's only 5 categories. Looks like sustained winds sitting in the low 130s with gusts up to about 160 miles an hour. Headed straight towards the Hawaiian Islands. If there is one silver lining to this cloud, it's that it is expected to weaken as it makes its way closer to the islands there. Could be making impact as a tropical storm on Sunday, bringing heavy rain and gusty winds in excess of 60 miles an hour. We'll give you some updates as we go through the weekend. In the meantime, in the Atlantic, Gonzalo, a tropical storm expected to strengthen to Category 1 strength, will thankfully stay away from any land in the short term. But once it makes its way past Puerto Rico, it's going to hit some open water, which is much warmer as it moves towards Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. And we're tracking Hannah now, a tropical storm that won't get the opportunity to strengthen to hurricane status, but will bring some gusty wind and some rain, possibly between about 4 and 8 inches into areas close to Brownsville and Corpus Christi as we go through the weekend. Temperatures across North America looking for some low 80s towards Boston, mid 80s in Philadelphia, 88 and muggy in Miami, 102 in Phoenix, 79 in LA, and 68 today in Seattle. Here's what we're going to do locally: 107 in Havasu, 102 in Phoenix, 105 in Yuma, and along the coast again, the marine layer is fairly thick, so we'll see temperatures that stay in the mid 70s, upper 70s towards LA. They will see some afternoon sunshine, but it's going to take a while for that to burn off. Putting future winds into motion today, I am expecting them to get a little gusty tonight. It's that time of year. We'll see that easterly flow during the day, and then we'll see that switch around to the north and northwest around 6 or 7 o'clock tonight. We'll see some gusts that'll get up to about 25 and even 30 miles an hour in some spots. But obviously, the later it gets, the calmer it will become. We'll get ourselves back into single digits again after midnight. After starting gloriously in the mid 70s today, we warm up to that 105 range by about 4 p.m. Look for 106 in Palm Springs, 107 in India. Once again, this is slightly below average for this time of year. Upper 90s in Joshua Tree, 97 in Cabazon, a warm 88 in Idlewild, and mid-70s in Big Bear. Your Comfort Air 7-day forecast shows us staying in this temperate range through the weekend, but then as we go towards next week, high pressure builds in that's going to warm us up starting on Monday, and we could be looking at some monsoonal moisture across the region as early as Wednesday.
Good morning, everyone. This week on Weekly Rundown, I have some of the most sweet stories you've probably ever seen on this show. You'll want to see them. Plus, I have guests. Tune in this Sunday at 6:30 only on NBC Palm Springs.
Well, have you ever heard of Ready, Set, Food? If you haven't, you're going to want to know about it, especially if you have a baby in your house or know someone who does. Joining us now is the inventor of this genius new product, Daniel Zakowski. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you for having me on. I'm really excited to be here.
Of course. Well, I told you that I have two sons. Fortunately, they did not have any food allergies, but their friends did. And so tell us the kind of the concept and how you developed Ready, Set, Food and what it really gives parents a jump start as far as information on their children's health.
Absolutely. So Ready, Set, Food, our goal is to help prevent food allergies. And we started this company after my nephew, Abe, developed food allergies himself about 3 years ago. And he has life-threatening food allergies now to peanut, egg, dairy, and a number of other allergens. And it turned out there had just been a number of clinical trials showing that you could prevent up to 80% of those food allergies. And there were new medical guidelines at the time from the American Academy of Pediatrics recommending that parents do so. The problem is that even in the clinical trials, there was very low compliance. Most parents weren't able to follow the protocol from the clinical trials and continue to feed their baby these allergenic foods in the way that was shown to prevent food allergies. So you had more than half the parents drop out of the largest clinical trial. So as a parent of 3 young kids myself, I knew that we needed an easy way so that all parents could see the benefit of helping prevent up to 80% of those food allergies. And that most babies at 4 months of age, when they were doing these clinical trials, just weren't ready to eat all the foods that they needed to do to follow the protocol from the clinical trials. But that at 4 months of age, babies are only really eating one thing, which is a bottle. So we knew that if we took the exact same process from the clinical trial and put it in a bottle, that it would be easy for every parent to give their baby the best chance at not developing food allergies.
I love it. I love it. So what you came up with was a powdered version of those products that we're concerned about, nuts and dairy, eggs that children might be have some kind of an allergic reaction to, but it exposes them early on. So tell me a little bit about this product as far as it's a powder, you access it and you put it in their bottle, and tell me how that process goes.
Absolutely. So we worked with nationally recognized allergists to make sure that we were following a protocol from the clinical trial that would be both safe and also effective at preventing food allergies. And what that looks like is that, the trials show that if your baby at 4 months of age starts to eat small amounts of the allergenic food on a regular basis, like peanut and egg, that helps prevent food allergies. So our product is just a powder of those real foods, just organic peanut, organic egg, and organic milk, but in a form that dissolves easily in breast milk or formula. That way, all you have to do to comply with the clinical trials and the guidelines is to put a little bit of powder in your baby's bottle once a day, and you'll be giving your baby the best chance at not developing food allergies.
I love it. And I know you're on Shark Tank, and Mark Cuban, whose daughter unfortunately has a peanut allergy herself, he was so committed to help you. He's been on board big time. So people can get your product on Amazon and, of course, on your website?
Absolutely. You can go to readysetfood.com or also Amazon. And you're right, Mark has been an incredible advocate for food allergy prevention. He knows how tough it can be to go through having a food allergy, to have a child who carries an EpiPen, that he's constantly worried if she brought it with her. And that we know that if every parent followed the new medical guidelines, and there's even newer medical guidelines from the USDA even last week, that there could be 200,000 fewer babies every single year in the US that develop these severe food allergies.
That is just genius. Thank you so much, Daniel. Boy, that is such great news for parents everywhere, I know. Thank you so much for bringing your product to the attention of our viewers. Best of luck with it, and say hi to Mark Cuban for us.
Will do. And thank you very much for giving us the time, because a lot of parents don't know about food allergy prevention, and especially with the new USDA dietary guideline report issued last week saying that every parent should feed their baby peanut and egg starting at 4 months of age. It's really critical that we get the message out so that all parents know that they can help prevent food allergies for their baby.
Absolutely. Ready, Set, Food is the way to go. Thanks so much, Daniel.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. you know, more and more we're being told that it's important to have our temperatures taken. I know I've had my temperature taken going into a restaurant, but it can be a little cumbersome. So our next guest is going to tell us about a genius discovery that he's come up with that'll take some of that cumbersome element away from having your temperature taken. Welcome, Puya.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So tell me, I see it right behind you there. What is Rapid Screen? This is not a handheld thermometer. Tell us what it is.
Yeah, in its simplest form, it's a temperature automated kiosk, and it's really intended just to take individuals' temperatures quickly and efficiently and determine if they have a potential chance for a fever. As we all know, COVID-19 that's one of the symptoms. And it's a faster and easier method than the handheld method. And hopefully it's going to try and get businesses back into the workforce and reduce that curve. I'll actually show it to you guys if you want to see a little quick demo.
Sure, I'd love to.
Cool.
Please step closer. Too close. Temperature normal.
And right there.
Wow, that is fantastic. So it's immediate. It is able to be in a kind of a kiosk setting, as you said. So have you found that businesses are really accepting this and really getting great results?
Absolutely. We've got a huge demand really in the business office spaces, manufacturing, production, and actually, in your neck of the woods, Rialto PD and City of Rancho Cucamonga purchased a few.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's great to know. And how accurate is it, though? Is it, because I know, as you said, the handheld is cumbersome, but this is so quick. How accurate is it?
Yeah, it's actually very accurate. We've measured it to be 0.54 Fahrenheit threshold, which is really double the accuracy as most products that are out there. So it is kind of offering the same or better accuracy as most systems out there.
I love it. And as a kiosk, it can, of course, be, different heights to, either on a table or standing freestyle. But I understand you were inspired to create this by a personal experience you had with COVID-19. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so back in January, I actually came down with COVID. It was a really terrible experience, and luckily I recovered. But after the recovery, I wanted to get my business back into shape, bring my employees back, as well as find a way where I can potentially help other businesses succeed like us. And that's where the idea of Rapid Screen came to fruition.
It's so genius. So I'm assuming it's affordable for businesses. It certainly takes out the middleman where you have to have a human hold a hand thermometer. It can be freestanding, right?
Absolutely. I mean, when you factor in all the costs of having someone there 8 hours a day, or if not more, they obviously have to take breaks. So that cost can really kind of exponentially grow on a month-to-month basis. This is a one-time cost, and it keeps things safe and effective, whereas you don't have to worry about the social distancing issues.
And exactly, and it's contact-free, as we're being told we must stay our distance. So as long as you're close enough, and it lets you know, I heard that little beep there, so it lets you know if you're the right amount of space behind it or in front of it in order to get your temperature taken. It's a genius idea. Yeah. And have you started, I know you said you have some locally, but it must be gaining a lot of popularity across the country.
Definitely. Across the country, we've sold it to many Fortune 500 companies, government establishments. I mean, you name it, any business that's really trying to bring their workforce back into their office spaces, their manufacturing, their warehouses. This is the most ideal scenario, and it's extremely effective.
Well, I love it. What a genius idea. I'm so glad you're healthy now, but out of that unfortunate illness came this brainchild. It's your silver lining. So glad to see it. Thank you, Puya, for joining us. And Rapid Screen definitely will be a real game changer.
Absolutely. We hope so. Thank you so much for having me again.
Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. I wanted to update folks today on some trends that are self-evident to many, but perhaps not enough. And that is the relationship of this virus to specific and particular populations in the state of California that are being disproportionately impacted by the spread of COVID-19. We've talked a lot over the course of the last number of weeks, months, about the importance we place on personal responsibility to wear face coverings, to wear face masks, the concern that has been expressed by many, certainly not just those representing the state of California, but all across the country, that so often we let our guard down, that we may be mixing outside of our households, either in large congregate events or even in your own backyard, where extended family members come over. We may begin by wearing our face coverings, but within an hour or two, as we get to the cooler to have a drink and eat some food, the masks now are put aside, the kids start congregating, and we put ourselves in a position where it's more, not less likely, that we'll see an increase in the spread, in the transmission of the virus. Multi-generational households in particular are vulnerable, particularly from an age cohort perspective, to the ravages of this virus in those types of environments. We've talked a lot about the challenges in congregate facilities, congregate settings, from homeless shelters to skilled nursing facilities, residential care, adult daycare facilities throughout the state of California, and clearly in our corrections institution, not only at the state level, but at the county level as well. Not enough focus, candidly, has been placed on essential workers in this state. And for us to be able to be successful in terms of stopping the spread of COVID-19, extinguishing COVID-19, which we will do, it depends on our ability to keep our essential workers safe. Who are these essential workers? This slide, I think, is profoundly important. And I hope you'll take a good look at it. Those that may be listening that don't have the benefit of the slide we're putting up, it's self-evident to many people that we demanded, even with our stay-at-home order, certain sectors of our economy to remain open. We deemed them essential. Grocery stores, food delivery, truck driving, warehousing, logistics, the foundational principles of any free society, the foundational needs that we all have in terms of basic health needs, basic food and shelter needs. So we relied on millions and millions of essential workers. That's even with the stay-at-home order. What wasn't identified as, I think, acutely as it needs to be identified is not only the sacrifices of those workers, and we've made a point of trying to do more to support our essential workforce in the past as it relates to providing support, a number of things that I'll be talking about here today. But we didn't get under the hood to state the obvious, and that is overwhelming majority, you'll see in certain sectors of our economy, are disproportionately represented in the Latino community, in the Black and Asian community. Look at farm workers. That may not surprise many people, 93% of that workforce being the Latinx Latino community. But look at construction laborers. Look at the cooks and the food preparation workers. Look at our critical workforce, our truck drivers and cashiers. Over half of the cashiers in the state are represented in the Latino demographic. And that's the community that increasingly and disproportionately is being impacted, not only by the spread of the virus, but the mortality related to the spread of the virus. It's not exclusive. Again, I'm not suggesting by any stretch it's just exclusive to one segment of our society. It crosses all segments of society, essential workers. But it is disproportionate. And so when people ask, as they often do, where are we seeing the spread? This is where we're seeing the spread. Essential workforce disproportionately represented by the Latino Latinx community. And that slide, I think, only reinforces and underscores the imperative of us to increase and build on the work we've done, increase the effort, and target our acuity of focus in terms of protecting these essential workers that we have foundationally come to rely on, even as we pull back some of the modifications we made in stay-at-home order, this essential workforce remains the bedrock, the backbone of those that are providing foundational and fundamental services to the state of California. So here's what we're announcing today is additional worker safeguards to protect this workforce, to focus again always on preventative measures, to focus on helping support our employers that have been overwhelmingly, have been overwhelmingly supportive of these efforts, and we want to continue to work in the spirit of collaboration and partnership with our employer community to educate not only employers large and small, but to help them educate employees as well. And we want to extend some longer lasting workers' protections. I referenced a moment ago some of the previous work we had done to support our essential workers. We want to build on some of that previous work. A lot we're done with executive orders. A lot we're done building on the CARES Act and what has come from the federal government. A lot of those things, as you're very familiar, including unemployment insurance, has expiration dates, which has put more acuity of focus on this time of the year, meaning end of July, where a lot of these things are expiring into August, September, where other extended supports are also expiring, and the need to re-engage in a more vigorous conversation, at least here in the state with our California legislature, the federal government, clearly with Congress and the White House. Let's talk about the preventative measures. Foundationally, the most important thing we can do is if someone is sick or feeling sick or has been exposed to the virus, we've got to give them the supports where they have the ability to isolate, the ability in some cases to quarantine. That may be easy in certain segments of society, certain cohorts that have the resources, maybe have the space, household space, may have the capacity to, go to a second home in maybe one instance, or even to expand part of their personal property and segment it off from other members' families. Others are stacked on top of each other. 3, 4 people living in some cases quite literally in the same rooms. I'll never forget a family in San Francisco I visited at a single room occupancy hotel in the Tenderloin. Went into the room and there were only beds on the floor. There was no space that wasn't filled with a bed. There was literally 8 people living in less than 100 square feet, stacked up quite literally on top and next to each other, a family. Just reinforces the exposure in that instance. What are we doing for those folks that are out there as bus drivers and folks out there as truck drivers? Folks, in that case, may have been working at a grocery store. If they are exposed or sick, we need to ensure that they can isolate and they can quarantine. So today we are announcing some new efforts, additional efforts in this space. We had some temporary efforts in terms of providing supports for hotel rooms, subsidies, and the like. We want to expand that. We talked a lot about Project Room Key, point of pride as it relates to the work we've done for homeless. We want to build on the Room Key model, and we want to extend it to those that may need that support to be isolated and quarantined. So we're opening up a portfolio and identifying additional assets within that portfolio to provide expanded opportunities in that space, more resources in that space. Accordingly, we focus on that chart a moment ago on terms of agricultural workers. We have to do more to support some 626,000 crop workers that come in this state and live here year-round in the state of California. 626,000 crop workers in the state. You have a lot of temporary housing as relates to the seasonal workforce. Done a lot down in Monterey, increasingly now not just on the California Central Coast, but now in California Central Valley. We need to do more for our agricultural and farm workers. And so we have a housing and harvest partnership that demonstrably led by providing facilities, providing access to quarantine and isolate individual farm workers in Monterey. We're going to build on that. They've done an incredible job in this state supporting ag workers and farm workers, agricultural workforce and farm workers. I want to thank the ag industry. They've been very supportive of that program, and we're going to expand access to that program and provide more supports, particularly in the Central Valley, not just the Central Coast in the state of California. And that's something else we'll be doing. And I can't press upon you more. When you go to the grocery store and you have the abundance that doesn't exist in almost any other part of the globe at the scale and scope it does here in a dense urban setting, at least a remarkable place we call home here in California. If you go to that store and you see that abundance, don't forget the folks that made sure to make that abundance available to you. And we have to make sure that we have an abundant mindset in terms of helping support these workers and make sure that they're safe, they're healthy, because of the essential nature of their incredible contribution to this state and our nation. Accordingly, we need to build a public awareness campaign. We've done a lot with our mask campaign. We've done a lot of PSA campaigns in the past, going back many, many months, significantly increased our digital, radio, and television ads. You may be seeing some of them up related to masks. Now we want to increase that campaign to reach more employers, workers, as well as families. A Know Your Rights campaign, basically educate individuals about guidelines, about what we've been putting out in terms of sectors and how to keep people healthy and safe. If I reflect back with objectivity, and I often do this, one must, because you can't be ideological about any of these endeavors. When we began to reopen our economy, we focused so much on when, but we didn't focus enough on how to not only do it, but to educate individuals, not just the sectors in our economy, the business owners in our economy, but individuals about what those guidelines are. I recognize that, and we have a responsibility to now really call that out and do more in this space. And that's exactly what we'll be doing, building on the existing public awareness campaign, but a whole new scale. We've been talking to legislative leaders about some support. We've obviously generated, and I've made this point on many occasions, a lot of philanthropic support in this effort, as well as federal support in this effort. We're now going to step up those efforts in a much more targeted and a much more focused way. Part of that education, again, as I said, is not just educating families and employees, but also educating our incredible employers just on more details around the guidance we put out. It's one thing to put out guidance as an employer. I know this intimately. The state may send us a lot of information, but we're dealing with the crisis of the day and, you know, our P&L statements and taxes and fees and this and that and everything else. And now we stack 7, 8, 10 pages of new guidance. It's difficult to get through all that. So we're putting out these new handbooks today that just simplify the guidance, make it easier for our employers to get that information, be able to share that information. We're also looking at best practices, sharing those best practices and the like. I want to thank my Jobs and Economic Recovery Task Force. They've been so instrumental for months helping us work, because it's truly a representative group of business leaders on helping us with the guidance. But they also made a point, which I agreed with, and now we're socializing with you, that we can do more to simplify that handbook, that guidance, and offer more guidance around best practices. And so we are advancing a much more proactive education effort to help businesses comply. It's not about being punitive. It's about educating for compliance, and that includes testing information that we announced a few weeks ago. Dr. Galley announced some new testing criteria in the state. We're moving forward with advancing those, but one of the most critical is the fact that health plans now have responsibility to pick up costs associated with testing for employees, and we want to make sure that becomes more, we want to see that more universal in terms of its application, but we also need to educate folks on some of those new strategies and new opportunities in terms of testing. So that's the purpose of the handbook that we're putting out today, and new tutorials and Q&As that we'll be putting out to build and support the same. So it relates to the efforts to ensure more long-lasting protections. We want to work, as this slide explains, to expand our workers' protections and build on those existing executive orders that I referenced. But here's the difference this time. We have gaps in our paid sick leave in the state of California. I'll give you just 4 examples specifically. Healthcare workers, front line, first responders, those where you have big critical outbreaks, and employers 500 employees or more were not included in the federal supports. That's a gap in the sick leave space. Now, we closed that gap a few weeks ago with our workers' comp and sick leave executive orders, but those are due to expire. We've had great conversations with the legislature, legislative leaders. There's been a number of legislators that have introduced legislation to codify some of what we put out in the executive orders. Others want to go further. Some want to, offer their own perspective, and we're very grateful for that leadership. And we've been having some wonderful conversations with the leadership of both the Assembly and the State Senate. And we are committed to a process, have been, and continue to be, and we want to now make this more abundantly clear, more publicly, to move quickly now to strengthen, through this legislative partnership, our paid sick leave, as well as our workers' comp for at-risk workers. Again, we want to open the economy quickly. People that are feeling sick, people that may be sick, we don't want them going to work and infecting other people. Having a big outbreak where now a factory or meat processing plant, fill in the blank, any business has to shut down. Bar, restaurant, even if they're doing, or bars closed, but restaurants doing even outdoor dining. If, the chef comes in not feeling well, or the sous chef, dishwasher, whoever, busboys, you want to give them the protection so that you can be protected and customers can be protected. That's why the workers' comp is so foundational in any economic recovery in the state. And this is truly when we're all in it together, employer, employee, consumers, the public generally. So these are critical in terms of protections for our economic vibrancy, our economic recovery, and for protecting essential workers. And so we're going to be aggressively engaged in an effort and building on some legislation that has been introduced and building on some of the work we already did on the executive orders as it relates to workers' comp and paid sick leave, and filling in those gaps that were not provided by the federal government. We're also going to be a little more strategic. We talk a lot about enforcement. Again, for me, enforcement is not about being punitive, it's about compliance. And I say that because I mean that. This is not ready, fire, aim. It's ready, aim, fire. We want to support people coming into compliance. And same time, you got to call out bad actors, people that simply dismiss, don't care for whatever reason, or just don't agree. I respect people's differences of opinion, but when it comes to impacting your health and the health of our economy in the medium and long term, in terms of our ability to reopen by suppressing the transmission of the virus, we have to be a little bit more targeted. And so we're going to be doing some more strategic enforcement of our labor laws, and we've got a series of very specific strategies that we'll be putting out, waiving some of the timelines. Here's the great reality. Here's the mystery to me, may not be for others, but you may not be as familiar with it either, and that is it could take 6+ months to move an enforcement action. Well, 6 months in the midst of a pandemic. How many people can be exposed to this virus? How many people's lives could be quite literally put at risk? So we've got to constrain that timeline. But again, in the spirit of an open hand, not a closed fist, and that's foundational. And so to all the business leaders out there, trust me, I hear you. We're not trying to target enforcement to just be punitive. But we are trying to deal with the time, manner, and place concerns we have around extinguishing this virus as quick as we can, and the need to go after folks that make some members in certain industries look bad when they may be the exception, certainly not the rule. But we've got to hold some of those folks to a higher level of expectation and cooperation, and to the extent accountability as well. One way we can improve accountability is focusing on strengthening our employer reporting of outbreaks. We're also working with the legislature on this. It is an interesting fact, you don't have a requirement as an employer to connect to your local health officer if you've had an outbreak in your business. Often that comes circuitously, may take some time, there's a delay, and that hurts our efforts to go in and isolate, quarantine, trace those contacts and potentially help support expansion of testing. So we think that strengthening of employer reporting is also very, very important in this environment as well. So those are the broad strokes of what we are will be doing to help support our essential workers, what we have done, but building on what we have done, a little more targeted, a little more focused, and certainly in the spirit of our times, spirit of collaboration with the legislature. And we look forward to updating you on the progress in all those areas very soon. But speaking of updating, we do on a consistent basis update you on the total case numbers as it relates to COVID-19. We tested over 137,000 people yesterday, close to 138,000 people yesterday. When we conducted those tests, 9,718 individuals tested positive for COVID-19. As I said, while many look to the day-to-day, we tend to look at some of these 7-day, 14-day averages. That's why we pair the average 7-day 9,881 number with yesterday's report on case numbers 9,718. Let's get under the hood on those numbers. Take a look at them. I mentioned we tested close to 138,000 people yesterday. You'll see the average number of tests over the last 7 days, north of 124,000. We will, yes, continue to work to get those testing numbers up. I don't know many states that are testing as many people, but that, as my mom used to say, don't compare yourself to others. So we've got to mark a responsibility as the nation's largest state to do more, and I recognize our responsibility to do more testing. So does Dr. Galley. That's why he announced on multiple occasions our efforts in that space, including, by the way, the encouraging news on testing as it relates to the FDA finally moving on pooled testing. And so we'll be pushing that very, very aggressively. We're working collaboratively with Kaiser and Sutter as healthcare systems who've been incredible partners with our efforts to date. We also have incredible leadership at UCSD and notable leadership at Stanford and UCLA. I want to just make a personal point to thank Governor Gray Davis, who's been a real champion for some of the pooled testing efforts and has had strong relationship that he's been able to coordinate with and provide support of with UCLA in particular. And so you're going to be hearing a lot more about pooled testing. It's something we've talked about in the past. We finally got those approvals from the feds. Some are still pending, but we want to start moving. Quest as one of our national labs. They're going to be doing most of their pooled testing back east first. But that's not going to delay our efforts as we're going to pursue our own efforts here in the state of California. Dr. Galley will talk a lot more about that. I look forward to talking to you a lot more about that as well. So we're going to be more creative in this space. And then we may have a little bit of surprise related to a new strategy next week related to testing that I'm also looking forward to making public, a new partnership for more innovation in this space. A little preview, an announcement next week. 7-day positivity rate, 7.5%. Monday, when I shared this slide, was 7.4%. So the 14-day is holding fairly steady. 7-day has been a little bit more challenging, 7.7 last Monday, 7.9 today, but 7.5% is the 14-day average. You can see where we were 2 weeks ago, 7.4% on this slide, 7.5 again, where we are today. Hospitalizations are increasing, but not at the rate that they were in the past. Let me be specific. 2 weeks ago, our hospitalization numbers, when I announced them, were growing over a 14-day period about 28%, 16% when I socialized hospitalization numbers a week or so ago. This week, we're putting, at least the end of this week, it looks a 9% increase in hospitalization. So again, hospitalizations are increasing, but there is a decrease in the increase, if you're following me, meaning the rate of growth is beginning to decline modestly. That is nothing to jump up and down about. It's just a fact. Again, these are statewide numbers, and they mask the reality in different parts of the state. And I'm going to get to that, as we always do, with the monitoring list to only reinforce and underscore that this is aggregate data. And as you hear me say often, none of us live in the aggregate. We live somewhere in the state of California with different criteria, different conditions, and different realities as it relates to hospital capacity and the like. But 9% increase over a 14-day period. You'll see total system capacity still in that 9% of all the hospital beds. It's been relatively steady, 8%, 9%. It was 9% in Monday's presentation, still 9% in terms of total hospital capacity today, Friday. As it relates to ICUs, similar trend as it relates to the rate of increase. While things are increasing, a couple weeks back it was 20% over a 2-week period. Then it was 12%. I think on Monday that I announced 11% is the 2-week admissions over a 14-day period in ICUs. And like hospitals, ICU capacity is distinctive in different parts of the state. And this is a point of particular focus for us as it relates to issues of ventilators, as it relates to some counties. We talked about Imperial County in the past, but parts of San Joaquin Valley, now Stanislaus, and other parts of the state, the ICU question becomes a more important and impactful one to answer and to address. Ventilators that are available still, close to 12,000. Remember, ventilators, you see the ICU bed capacity. Remember what a ventilator does. At the end of the day, a ventilator, and not easily, but with the incredible capacity we have in the hospital system and the surge plans, ventilators can turn to more access, more points of opportunity to increase the portfolio of beds that are available in our ICU system. There was some new reporting that came from the feds, or new criteria reporting, and that's why the number, we had about 17%, that blue section on this, which is the total number of ICU patients that are tested positive for COVID-19. It's 23% today. It didn't grow from 17 to 23% per se. It's just we had to use different number. They wanted to pull out the NICU beds, not just the ICU beds. And so we want to make sure that we are aligning with the updated federal reporting. So that's a slide you're very familiar with, and the 23% represents that update as it relates to that critical care capacity. Here's the update as it relates to our critical focus and attention related to the monitoring list of those counties that have been on for at least 3 days. You'll see now we have 34 counties. Kern just went on that are on for 3+ days. So this list, and we have a couple more that are likely to end up over the weekend, so it may be as high as 36, represents the vast majority of the population here in the state of California, well north of 90%. And so the modifications for 90% of the state of California have been very meaningful in terms of pushing outdoor activities and the like. And so these are the counties where we're providing more technical assistance, that we're monitoring with more laser acuity. Of course, we again monitor all 58 counties, but this is the list that we've highlighted. It's a list very important to parents like myself as it relates to the issue of reopening our schools. This is the list you want to be off of, not on. So that we can get back to in-person education sooner, not later. As always, I want to remind you the importance, the imperative of wearing masks. Nothing more important as we move into a weekend. And I'll remind all of us that it's often the case, don't need to remind you perhaps, that weekends where we, certainly take off the suit and tie and may take down our guard a little bit, and that's where we have started to see some spread of this virus. And so I encourage you, just when you're mixing outside your household, if you have to do that, I encourage you not to do that. We're guiding you not to do that, but to wear the masks, physically distance, don't let down your guard. Let me just close by saying this as it relates to letting down our guard. It's interesting. We've been talking to our health officers up and down the state for months now, but in particular in relationship to the presentation we're making today on essential workers. And again, they've highlighted concerns around multi-generational households where we're seeing a lot of mixing. They've highlighted concerns around segments of our economy and importance of moving indoor activities outdoors, which we have been doing. Again, we've been guided by this partnership up and down the state with health officials and federal partners across the country that have also been helpful, regional and those that are working directly with the administration in Washington, D.C. In terms of identifying hotspots, skilled nursing facilities, congregate settings, and the like. But what we heard over and over again is even with essential workers, what happens often is the case, workers may carpool with a mask on. They may show up and keep a mask on because the employer is holding folks to that expectation appropriately. But some may go into the break room and everybody's masks are off. And we've heard that example by multiple health officials in different parts of the state, which just reinforces how easy it is to forget that, we could be 90% pure in terms of our efforts and intention, 100% in terms of our intention, but our efforts sometimes run 90%, which is impressive. But when it comes to this virus, it takes advantage of those moments. This virus takes advantage when we turn the other way or we just think, okay, I'm just going to make a quick exception here. That's when this virus is its most potent. So I just encourage people physically distance, wear their masks. You do both, and you stay out of large crowds. You are very likely to significantly reduce the spread of this virus, including your own capacity to get it. As always, can't forget washing hands, sanitation, which is foundational and fundamental as well to moving our efforts forward. So with that, happy to move this conversation forward and happy to answer any questions from reporters that I know are assembled online.
Marissa Perlman, CBS 13.
Governor, how are you? With counties like Stanislaus and San Joaquin County in a healthcare crisis, San Joaquin County seeing 138% over bed capacity, struggling with staffing. Can you clarify why none of these counties are tapping into your health corps? You've been saying there are 35,000 health corps members ready to be deployed to assist with this crisis, but we've learned most aren't actually qualified to work in an ICU or have the license to respond. So can you clarify how many healthcare clinicians are ready and able to be deployed to hospitals right now?
Yeah, I have the exact number, and forgive me, I'm going to make sure that our team sends it to you. But we did just get an updated number. As you know, we have over 90,000+ people that filled out an application, but not all of them were licensed. Not all of them met the criteria and our expectations. Roughly 35,000, as you suggest, did. Not all of them active. We currently, and this I do know, 18 different cohorts have been supported, segments of our economy, skilled nursing facilities, hospitals, other settings, CDCR, in our prisons by our health corps teams. Hundreds and hundreds of people deployed as we speak. I'll get you the exact and updated number. We also, and I mentioned this a couple days ago, and forgive me that I don't recall the exact number, but we went back, we resurveyed those folks that are in our system, and we began to segment our needs with more acuity. So thousands of additional contacts were made, and people are now ready to be made available, and I'll provide you that number. But let me just say this in relationship. Health Corps is one component, and we're very proud of that process and very proud of the hundreds and hundreds of people that have been deployed throughout the state at critical junctures throughout this pandemic. And we certainly are doubling down on the efforts moving forward to work through the latest increase in the wave of this virus. But we also, and I hope you pick this up, we're also very lucky to have the support of 190 federal medical personnel that came in. They have been deployed this last week and the week prior through our partnership with HHS. We also have a lot of other federal teams that we've assembled and strike teams within our own system. You just recall the work we did down in Imperial. It's interesting, not everybody's talking about Imperial now. We still have a lot of work to do down there. But you'll recall on multiple occasions all the strike teams that we sent down, these multi-jurisdictional teams, federal partners, regional partners, state partners, as well as county partners. And so that's the approach we're taking, not just the health core. Health core is one component, an important component, but is not the totality in terms of the health support in terms of workers, but a critical one, and we'll get you the latest detailed information. Make sure you get that momentarily.
Nicole Nixon, Capital Public Radio.
Hi, Governor. You acknowledged the other day that people are on the edge of a cliff and there's this looming eviction crisis with additional unemployment set to expire. And on top of that, people are still struggling to connect with EDD and get their benefits. So, two questions. More than 4 months into this pandemic, what needs to be done to clear that persistent backlog at EDD? And also, if Congress doesn't pass additional relief before the current benefits end, is it the state's responsibility to step in and offer help to people forced out of work by these new business shutdowns?
Yeah, we've done much or more. I don't know another state has programs to secure federal dollars for homeless, and now purchasing through our Project Home Key, not just Room Key, new homeless housing partnerships on meals for our seniors to help keep restaurant workers employed, creative strategies on sick leave and workers' comp that we identified here today, and you're reinforcing. I'm very proud of those efforts. And so the answer to your question, it's a way of, I guess, extending a narrative. We always take responsibility to try to do a little bit more, a little bit better, including regardless of your immigration status. I know that's controversial, but this state did that. Not every state, I don't know about another state, did that to help support folks that are vulnerable in this environment. So, look, I'm expecting good news with the work that Leader Pelosi, Speaker Pelosi, will be advancing. If she wasn't there, I wouldn't be as confident in that statement. But because she's there, I have deep confidence in her capacity to pull something off, important to pull something off that directly addresses the issue, not just on unemployment insurance, but getting checks in the pockets of those that have been impacted by COVID-19. Look, as it relates to the prior question, as it relates to a component of your question related to EDD, look, $4.8 billion has been distributed this week at EDD. 7 million people have just since March 12th received unemployment insurance benefits. I don't think there's another state comes close in terms of just processing. So we're dealing with a scale and scope, not an excuse. 5,600 people. 5,600 people. I haven't updated you in the last few weeks. We talked about that first cohort of 1,300 people that we put to help with our helplines and the new text messaging program, how we brought other agencies in and project improvement teams in. We have a medium-term strategy, and then I have a long-term strategy. In fact, next week, you'll be hearing a lot more about our long-term EDD strategy as it relates to addressing the foundational issue, which, by the way, is not unique to California, and that is an IT infrastructure that's on the leading and cutting edge of 1979. And that's not an excuse. That's an opportunity, and it's a responsibility to not build on it, but to reimagine and reprocess that entire system. So don't think for a second we have not been focused on the medium and long term, and then just addressing the adequacy of getting those very difficult individual claims where something is just not clicking in terms of the information provided or the response back in a timely manner, and to deal with all that backlog. So you're going to hear a lot more about that and next week, and what EDD will be doing in addition to all the new people that we put on the problem, but how we solve the problem once and for all. And that's my responsibility as governor. I look forward to advancing those reforms. I don't want to overpromise that they'll happen overnight, but know that people are working overtime in that space. Finally, as it relates to the issue of, Cliff, you referenced the issue of evictions, and I thank you for that. We had done some work through executive order on evictions. I also provided the legal authority for the Judicial Council in the state of California to do the same. Those were temporary frameworks. We are working with two legislative leaders, Caballero and Chu in particular, leadership in the Senate and the Assembly, and partnership, spirit of collaboration, and deep urgency to work on that issue. I made that point. There were a number of you that asked a question about that a few days ago. I'll just say it again, that we are working with the legislature and working with tenants groups and property owners, apartment owners, and the like, large and small owners, to see what we can do to strengthen our protections. Because, yes, we are concerned, as all of us should be, about a lot of these temporary fixes going the wayside, and our need to put together a further bridge, at least through the end of the year, perhaps longer, to work through this so that we can avoid the most significant impacts that this virus has had on people's pocketbooks and their capacity to pay their rent, and in many cases, even to pay their mortgage.
Patrick Healy, NBC4.
Hello, Governor. Thank you very much for taking our questions today. A couple of quick things, if I could. Number one, can you comment, or perhaps Dr. Galley could comment, on where we believe the R effective rate is now? LA County believes it's below that threshold of 1.0. Statewide, in the aggregate, do we also see that encouragement? And secondarily, can you shed some light on the U.S. Air Force military personnel who are being deployed at certain hospitals, and why Los Angeles County was selected as a location for 2 hospitals to receive that military aid? Thank you.
Good. Both perfectly positioned with Dr. Galley in front of me. We'll come up to the podium. As you know, Dr. Galley comes from L.A., been very close in collaborative relationships, including his wife, who runs the system down there. So better to have him answer that question. Let me just quickly say, as it relates to the R effective, we finally have seen it, and I appreciate you acknowledging L.A. County, finally in Imperial now, below 1 as well. I'm in peril of answering a question Dr. Galley's better positioned to answer. Let me bring him up to the mic.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you for the question. Indeed, as the Governor describes, we don't live in the aggregate. The R effective throughout the state is different. We have some counties below 1. And remember, all that means is that a single person who's infected today is going to infect that number of people next. So when you drop below 1, it means you're starting to drop your number of cases, the level of transmission in your community, and hopefully if that maintains, you'll see the cases drop down, then the impact on the hospitalization and the ICU levels as well. So good news when you drop below 1. Imperial County, LA, some others are below 1. Others are hovering around 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. And what that means is that more people over time will become infected. So even though we look at the statewide number that's somewhere between 1.1 and 1.3, we notice that some counties are going to be on the upward of transmission and others are going to be decreasing. So we watch that closely, and some of the encouraging news in some of our counties is really tied to that R effective being below 1. And then others where we consider their hotspots, some of those Central Valley counties are above 1, and we're working hard to make sure that they have the resources around staff and testing, wearing the mask, really delivering the message in those essential workplaces that the governor has done today, working with our local partners to ensure that that number starts to come down all throughout the state. As it relates to LA County receiving some of the Department of Defense staffing support, again, we looked across the state, LA County, with big hospitals, important centers where we see disease transmission high, concern to make sure that the hospitals in that important center are supported, received 2 out of 8 of the teams, so a sort of proportionate share, if you will, across the state. But remember, some of the other teams went to northern parts, even rural parts of our state, to make sure that the hospitals are supported. We also will continue to work with our federal partners to ensure that that staff can be moved to strategic places throughout the state when necessary. So we'll continue to work with LA, we'll continue to work with the Bay Area counties and all counties throughout the state to make sure staffing there, as well as our health corps staff, are deployed strategically to make sure patients get the level of care that they need and that staffing doesn't become the issue around delivering high quality care throughout the state.
Thank you, Doctor. Next question.
Jackie Fortier, KPCC.
Good afternoon, Governor. An LA Times story published today found that the state health department knowingly sent state inspectors from nursing home to nursing home without first testing them for COVID-19. Given the huge number of cases and deaths linked to nursing homes, why aren't state inspectors required to be tested routinely? And has that changed?
Yes, it has. We're raising our standards. We're requiring for every sector that an inspector is inspecting that they meet the same criteria that's established within that sector. So that has been changed. It is, forgive me, in the lexicon of government, a meet and confer issue with our bargaining units, but we will raise that standard.
Kathleen Renane, AP.
I just want to understand exactly what you're announcing today. Are you signing any executive orders or public health orders today in relation to the things that you've talked about? And then when is the state going to provide details on the waiver process for schools? And will it be a requirement that unions have to support any of the waiver plans for them to be approved?
Yeah, well, let me take advantage of giving you a slide as relates to elementary. Remember, the waiver process is for elementary schools, specifically here in the state of California. And the requirements work along the lines you see posted now. Those of you that don't have the benefit of a television set or the ability to read the slide, it's about partnerships that need to be initiated with requesting a waiver with labor, parents, community-based organizations to allow for in-person instruction, again, for elementary schools specifically, in partnership with local health officials. And so school districts can work with their local health departments to go through that waiver process. And so that's the framework that we've laid out. That's the guidance that we put up when we announced the guidance for schools writ large. This was the guidance that was included in that process. And so it is a process that we look forward to engaging in and one that we've laid out with broad strokes on this slide. As relates to the question you raised related to the work with the legislature, here's the good news. Legislature's in session. They're not out of session, meaning when I first established the framework for the executive orders, the legislature had to shut down. We were in the middle of this pandemic with certain emergency orders that we needed to advance in real time because the legislature and many legislative leaders have introduced legislation and will be reconvening next week formally. We are working hand in glove with leadership, the legislature, to look at a number of those bills and to see how we can build on the work that was done with some of these executive orders, but also work that wasn't advanced through any executive fiat or executive order. And so that's the spirit of the moment, the spirit of engagement, but again, with a laser-like focus in terms of timelines and expectations. And so that's what we announced today.
Final question, Karma Dickerson, Fox 40.
Hi, Governor. Thank you. So going back to the issue with we're talking about federal benefits expiring, understanding that there is work that's done on the federal level, but even on the best case scenario, we are still likely talking about a gap in services. So just wondering if you've sat down and really crunched the numbers and looked at what that would actually mean specifically on the ground day to day for Californians, and whether or not there is any relief just lined up in the interim for people taking $2,400 to $4,800 in a pay cut. Additionally, much of the federal discussion and debate has to do with whether or not that extra $600 disincentivizes work. As you've spoken with national leaders, have you made the case that the extra $600 may mean one thing in Iowa, but means something totally different to a Californian who probably still can't pay their bills with that extra $600?
Yeah, well done. I mean, you just made the case by framing the question, and so you're absolutely spot on, and that's self-evident to anyone who lives in a high-cost environment, not just here in California, but other parts of the country. We've made that case abundantly to legislative leaders, notably Speaker Pelosi. We've had constant dialogue with Speaker Pelosi. As you may recall, a number of months ago, we were very aggressive in terms of our proactive advocacy for a new CARES Act. Now, we were not shy. We were very aggressive and pointed in terms of the urgency to meet the moment and to get ahead of the curve. We haven't been shy in terms of our criticism of the lethargy of the process so far coming from the United States Senate, and the aggressive, contrasted by the aggressive actions taken by Speaker Pelosi and the House of Representatives that moved aggressively with a bill to substantively not only address the issue that you identified as relates to the supplemental $600 payment, but even well beyond that in terms of meeting the needs of individuals ravaged by the economic consequences of this virus. So that's leadership. That's point of pride, that leadership demonstrably is emanating from the state of California and Speaker Pelosi and her colleagues. And I couldn't be more proud of her and them and thankful. And as I said a moment ago, I'll reinforce it. I have great expectations because of her tenacity, her experience, her insight, her fortitude, her ability to run circles around so many others in terms of how process works. And how one conducts themselves in terms of those deliberations, and so I'm going to continue to lean in terms of the expectation that they're going to do something bold. That said, yes, we have gamed out not only as it relates to the individual contributions that individuals have gotten related to federal supports, but you saw in our budget all the additional money we put in. You know, we have historic budget cuts, but we didn't cut the historic increase that we put in to our working families tax credit, the EITC. You saw the $100 or so million, close to that my Business and Jobs Advisory Committee helped conceive to help small businesses that were falling through the PPP cracks and the SBA cracks to make sure that we're getting to women, minority-owned businesses, some emergency aid and loans. You saw the child tax credit component of the EITC that we strengthened. You saw some of the sick leave protections. You saw the workers' comp protections that not every state is providing, that we as a state are providing. Again, not waiting around for someone else to solve these problems. So we've tried to sort of reinforce the architecture. If this were a house, the foundation to prepare for whatever may happen externally, so that we can be more firm and foundational in terms of our resourcefulness to address what may or may not happen at the federal level. We were able to put together a budget with a lot of contingent cuts, and as those dollars materialize, those cuts will not materialize. That will also help strengthen our resolve and, moreover, our resiliency as a state. We also looked at our reserves, and we didn't use every dollar of reserve. So again, we had resources just in case things didn't materialize. So it gives you a sense. I just want to give you a sense, get into the mindset here, that the answer is yes. We are in a very flexible and dynamic environment, and we're in a very opportunistic one in this respect, and I say that not pejoratively, but meaningfully, with the legislature coming back into session next week with renewed energy and desire to partner, which has always been there, but real desire to partner with specific legislative vehicles. We have the ability to move very quickly in the next few weeks, depending on what happens. And so that's also a point that should be encouraging, despite some of the discouraging lack of intentionality and action to date by the Senate leadership. And that's something, again, that we want to fix, something we want to address. So with that, I want to thank all of you for the opportunity for me to address you today and the week, and encourage you to, again, practice that social distancing, physically distance where you must, and make sure we're all wearing face coverings, and to make sure you have a wonderful and safe and healthy weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday. Take care.